I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do a roll call. Transportation Committee members first. Sriram Iyer is not here. Tom Owen. Christine David.
Present.
Joe Davis.
Present.
And we have a vacancy, and then we have council member liaison, Councilmember Lewis.
Here, I'm here.
And then we have the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee members, Steve Bailoff.
Present.
Can you unmute yourself? Or did we lose him?
I think
Present.
there he is.
No, that's
that's not-
Jerry. Okay, Steve was with us a minute ago. He's not with us now,
He's
so
online. He is on.
he is on.
He's the fourth one down.
Okay. So Steve, if you have a chance to unmute yourself and respond, that would be great. And then we'll skip and go to,
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
yes, we can. Thank you. Jerry Lugers.
Here.
Aloha.
And then it's missing on here. We have our chair, David Jones. And then our council member liaison for the BPAC, Councilmember Widmer is here. So you wanna-
First one to approve the minutes for the Transportation Committee for July 12th. Any motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, so I have Tom as first, Joe as second,
Kristen, second.
Christine second. And approved. Okay,
Is there BPAC minutes to approve?
no, we don't have that. That we do have opening for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on anything that is not on the agenda? I don't see any hands raised. So we can keep going.
Okay. All right. Then old business neighborhood management plan, Robert?
Yeah, so this is just a brief update on the implementation of the Neighborhood Traffic Management Action Plan. We've started implementing the improvements that came before the committee and then forwarded to the city council. And that includes the replacement of various stop signs with larger stop signs in certain locations. We have speed limit signs that were replaced and updated, as well as some striping enhancements in front of Adelante Selby School and Encinal School, where we refreshed the crosswalks, put in Shark's Tooth limit lines in advance of those crosswalks. And then the most recent item that we completed were the installation of our first temporary speed bumps on Glenwood Avenue, along with some speed feedback signs that were donated by one of the residents along Glenwood. And so this is an opportunity for the Transportation Committee and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee to provide feedback on the measures that have been installed to date.
Are we able to ask a question?
Well,
I have a question about this management action plan. Are we able to access the data that was collected in the past couple of years as a transportation committee and see what it is you're working with from all the feedback?
certainly, all that information is available online. And I can certainly send out links to the committee members and any members of the interested public. Most of the data is collected and housed on a website, athertontrafficmanagement.com. And the final recommendations with regards to the implementation measures was approved by the city council on November 11th of last year. And so I can send links to the committee members with regards to that.
Yeah, I've heard from several residents on Glenwood that they see a change in the traffic patterns and the speed. And so most of them are very, very pleased with it. You know, there is a little bit of noise that comes depending on like the pickup truck goes over it and you know, they've regained their speed, or there's a few automobiles that normally flare up and down the street, mostly a Mercedes or a Mustang from down the road with one of those glass packs on his muffler, but he shoots up and down, and of course he makes noise. But most of the responses that I've heard from people on Moulton, as well as people that are on Glenwood, have been very, very positive. And as I said, I've noticed right from the beginning, even when just the sign was there, the traffic did slow down. And so they are slowing down. And I think that the two speed signs, even though one I think is a little close to Laurel, it's tough to get up to 25 miles an hour in that small space, but at least it keeps people to understanding what the speed limit is. So I think it's been a change. So.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. And for those of you who don't know, I actually live on Glenwood, so I experience it in the fact of speed bumps in front of my house, which my wife was not really excited about. But you have seen a big change. Normally people are just kind of hitting their peak speed kind of in the middle of that area where the speed bump is now, and now they're slowing down and going forward. We've had occasional cases where people just kind of try to ignore it, and we've seen a 911 or two bottom out, and they probably won't do that again. And the pickup trucks, some of them try to go too fast, the construction trucks, and they hit it, and it makes a lot of noise, and there's stuff in the back rattling around. But in general, I've seen it's been a positive, speed reduction from the neighbors I've talked to. Everyone is happy about it. So 2 questions for you. It was one, have you gotten any complaints from any of the neighbors at all so far?
Not yet. Actually, I was going to say I did get one email from a resident in advance of this meeting that lives on Glenwood, indicating how grateful she is about the installation of the speed bump and electronic feedback signs, indicating that she walks and drives on Glenwood, and some of the drivers aren't always paying attention. The public comment will be posted after the meeting online, but it is a positive email from one of the residents.
The second question is there going to be we did a traffic study, speed study on the street prior to, or are we going to do that sometime here in the future now that this is installed, to see what the average speed has become? Right?
That is our intent. I think we're going to wait it out a little bit. We'll collect that data, and then we'll also send a formal letter asking for feedback from the residents. But as you and Councilmember Woodbury indicated, so far things are positive.
I did get one complaint. I'll tell you that, and their issue is that occasionally it makes noise, and so he wasn't making an issue of it, but he did say that he was not happy about it because it made noise.
Okay.
Quick question. I'd be curious, piggyback on your comment, I'd be curious if we could do the speed study sooner rather than later to see what the new speeds are with the advent of this, and then a little bit further down the road to see if they stay where they were, or if people are becoming more complacent and figuring out a way over or around it.
Okay. I can check with PD with regards to what their circuit is right now with their black box.
Yeah.
And we'll do that. We also have an avenue to get some, I'm going to say it's not as accurate as that box, but we have some other avenues to collect some speed data that we can look at over time as well.
Okay, we should pick whatever
Yeah.
whatever method works or we have available to us, and then do that same method twice.
Okay.
The one that has surprised me that I haven't seen, if you go through some of the streets in Menlo Park, you see a lot of swerving to hit the fire truck, at least on one side, because only one side of the car is bouncing around. And I've not seen anyone doing that at Glenwood as I'm coming home or driving. People just seem to go straight, partly because there's trees on both sides, and maybe it feels more contained, but maybe that'll change. Okay, sorry.
I just had a question about visibility. So I've only gone over it at night. And is the location of the hump likely to move? Is that subject to revision if it goes permanent?
Depending on the feedback that we receive, there is a potential, but I think that we tried to pick a central location for them.
So is there any chance you can get some sort of striping on the pavement as a warning? Because some of your stuff may be that people are used to seeing
Yellow.
indications of a hump on the pavement.
Okay, so what we have is the hump. I would say, I don't know how reflective it is. I haven't driven it at night. We do have the signs in advance and at the humps, as well as the humps have built-in chevron striping on them that are supposed to be reflective to vehicles, but I don't know how effective that is at night.
Not terribly.
But I think that if they become permanent, then we'll definitely be looking at improving the visibility.
And the second one is going to be positioned west of Laurel, or?
No, the next set are planned, and they're actually a different type up at Fairview, Linda Vista, and Monte Vista.
Oh, okay.
And so this is the one that was approved on Glenwood. And based on the council priorities, the next one is up there.
I misunderstood. I thought there was
Okay.
going to be a second one on Glenwood.
Yeah.
Nobody moves.
Any other comments on this issue? Anything else? Good.
No, thank you for the feedback. Appreciate it.
Great. Next item, our regular agenda is the review and discussion of the Fair Oaks, Lloyden Park, Dinkinsville Lane intersection. You're on again, Robert.
Yes, this item was requested to be put on the agenda by Vice Chair of the Transportation Committee, Christine David. And it's related to the increasing pedestrian activity around here at the town center with the improvements that we have, and a desire to talk about the potential enhancements. I do want to indicate that the City Council has approved funds in our capital improvement program to make pedestrian enhancements and traffic safety improvements at the intersection, as well as separately funded additional money for re-landscaping and potentially putting in a bioswale on the corner of Fair Oaks at Lloyden Drive. And so what I'm going to do, I have shared on my screen is
Sorry, Fair Oaks and where?
Fair Oaks and Lloyden. And
Oh,
so
Lloyden, that's
I'm going to
Mhm.
try and pull up the street view so it's a little easier to kind of navigate. And this, rather than, the intent is not to predispose any ideas, but to get general feedback and input as to the type of improvements that and how we might approach the design of these things. And so this here is in the midst of our construction, the approach, the eastbound approach to Station Lane, or the entry to the town center. And as you can see back there, it is a little bit of, I'm not going to say a blind corner, but it is hard to see oncoming cars and potentially pedestrians. So there is going to have to be some trimming of vegetation to accommodate the pedestrian activity. We're going to have to try and select an appropriate location for the crossing. The things that we were thinking about include extension of the sidewalk from Lloyden Drive Right now, it ends right at the entry gates, and looking at extending the sidewalk in essence around the corner to an appropriate spot where we'd have an accessible crossing. One of the items that we've thought about is putting in the rectangular rapid flashing beacons to help advise oncoming traffic of the pedestrians. And in addition to that, potentially a speed table to, again, slow traffic down as they come to the crossing. These are ideas, they're nothing set in stone, and we're here for feedback. The one thing that I do want to advise is that we will likely need some consultation with the CPUC to confirm that whatever it is that we are proposing to do doesn't interfere with rail rights and rail safety. And so we're planning to design whatever it is such that it is hopefully far enough away from the crossing that it is outside of their purview. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
When I spoke to George, I understood that it was gonna be, if people wanted to cross, they could walk on the sidewalk. And then the crossing would be down at the corner of Lloyd. So it's a straight across thing with flashing beacons.
So I'm sorry, just to clarify, are you talking about this piece of Lloyden, or are you talking about as we come up between Lloyden and Fair Oaks? So I think we were looking at a crossing.
There at the end of the sidewalk,
Mhm.
walking across, and there would be flashing beacons. He said that's what y'all were planning on doing, and then I understood you mentioned the plateau,
Mhm.
which is, I've seen those down Palo Alto, so. But it's gonna be there, not further down. Is that correct? Is that what you're thinking?
When you're saying, I think that right now we have sidewalk in essence in front of the station building. And so that's pretty much what we're thinking about tying into. So here is, it's a potential crossing location. So we'd bring that sidewalk around from Lloyden to an appropriate spot to be able to cross the street.
Or bring further up.
Or bring your, I said,
It wouldn't be further down towards Ensign or ECR, right? It wouldn't be down further.
You'd have to do some serious modification, like moving that pole to get a sidewalk to, or a pathway to go further down.
no, I'm gonna say the problem with going further down is that we don't have a pedestrian sidewalk or pedestrian access on the other side of the driveway. And so the intent would be to bring it up potentially as far as we can on this side, but trying to maintain visibility to oncoming traffic as well.
Are you planning a stop? Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, Robert
Yeah.
and Christine, I hate to interrupt, but the image that you have on the screen, at least on my screen, is not what you're talking about. The
Oh, I
image
apologize. Let me
on
try.
my screen is Ringwood and Edge and Lowry and Altry. And so, I think all of us coming, yeah. Oh, that's
Okay,
better.
thank you. I apologize for that. I thought as I was putting it up on the screen here, it was sharing properly. So
No.
I apologize. So what we have here, this is the sidewalk area that fronts the station building at the entry to the town center. And so this view is in essence exiting the town center. We have to the west, we have a stop sign for eastbound traffic that stops at the driveway. Currently, westbound traffic comes without stopping or slowing down from across the tracks. And on Lloyden Drive, we have a sidewalk that terminates right now at the entry gates to the Lloyden Park area, which would likely basically be extended along Lloyden and around the corner on Fair Oaks to an appropriate spot where we could have a crossing over to the existing sidewalk at the town center entry.
So Robert, I have a question.
Yeah.
The oncoming traffic from Middlefield to Fair Oaks, wouldn't it also need indicators? So it wouldn't fly over the rails and hit oncoming.
And so that's the things that we need to think about is how we adequately advise that traffic of pedestrians. One option is some of the rapid flashing beacons have some advanced warning signs that can also flash at the same time. We mentioned the potential of a speed table, a physical thing to slow traffic down as well. And so
People fly over that
I'm going to say they do.
regularly.
And so, again, this is an opportunity for you as both the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee as well as the Transportation Committee to talk about the intersection, provide some feedback to staff as to the kinds of things that we should be looking at, things that we should be concerned of, things that you think would work or potentially would not work. And
So I have some comments for you, Robert. I think that the idea of extending the cross or the sidewalk all the way around Lloyd and onto Fair Oaks so that it comes to a point where the exit directly out of Dinkelspiel would meet up with it is kind of a bridge to nowhere. It will be hard to create enough space on the west side of the vegetation on that right side to, in there. As you come around,
Well, let me just try and get a little
that's
closer.
that area there.
So I'm gonna say, bringing it around to the pole, I don't think is very difficult. It'll be if we try and extend it a little further around the pole.
But so I guess what I'm after is, I mean, you were hesitant to call that a blind corner. I'll go ahead and say it's a pretty blind corner. But if you're gonna put a crosswalk there, where are pedestrians expected to go? Are you gonna turn left there and go west on Fair Oaks? Maybe, and if so, I have an idea there. And if you're gonna come out of this to cross that crosswalk and go into Lloyden Park, that makes sense. But an alternative would be if you continue the crosswalk where your cursor is now through this area to the left of the screen, past whatever the old train station becomes, some part of our history, to that area, and then come straight across,
So you're suggesting that it be
move it up in there.
down here?
Yep, because that's, if you're going to get across Fair Oaks Lane to get into Lloyden Park, I think that is a more visible place
And having walked it, that's exactly where you go.
to do it. And so the alternative then to the folks that were going to be heading west on Fair Oaks, as opposed to landing in what I called the bridge to nowhere, if we put an additional crosswalk, which as I understand is just paint on the street, at the western exit of the front driveway over here.
Okay,
That
so I'm gonna say, I'm just so that I can visually understand where you're talking about.
So further to the left.
Are you
as
talking
going up.
about
Yep.
the other driveway, the western driveway?
That's a
That's,
secondary one, he's saying, not the primary.
so if you put a crosswalk there, maybe without the fanfare of all of the lights and things that lined up with effectively, I believe that's Fair Oaks as well to the right, the cul-de-sac. You know, then the folks that wanted to access that part of the bike lane to continue west on Fair Oaks would do it not in what I'll call the blind intersection, right? So they come through the driveway, the front parking lot, out that western entrance exit, cross there safely in a crosswalk to carry on west.
I like that idea.
Uh,
I would think that the majority of people, and where this question came up, to my knowledge, was that the people in Lloyden Park were concerned about their kids crossing that blind intersection on their bikes, you know, or going to the library or going to the park. So the majority of the traffic coming and crossing into the Civic Center is going to be coming from Lloyden Park. Yes, there's a couple that live down the street. I'm not going to say there isn't, because there are. But the majority of them are there. You know, the issue is you got a stop sign here, right before that. So it's a perfect place to put the crosswalk because one side stopped. The only issue is you have to stop the people that are coming over the train tracks and they have to know well in advance that something's there so that they don't get on the train tracks in case a train starts coming and they have nowhere to go. Which is what ended up happening down at Ravenswood a few times with, in Menlo Park a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
The people got onto the tracks and they couldn't get off. And so there's a potential for that to be happening here.
Less potential, because that was driven by a red light with cars backed up to a red light, whereas you're talking about
Yeah.
somebody in a crosswalk and got out of the way pretty quickly.
Yeah. I understand.
I was going to suggest also, you mentioned a speed table of some kind. And my thought is to put it on the east side of the tracks. So you're slowing traffic down before they even get into that intersection. Otherwise, it's going to make the intersection even more complicated.
One of the other items that we can look at, it's just something that I was thinking in terms of stopping or slowing traffic down is one option could be to put a stop sign on the east side of the tracks.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it wouldn't be flashing or indicating pedestrians.
No, I say, in addition to whatever it is
Oh, I
that
see.
we
Just a
do
full-time stop
for
sign.
pedestrians, you can slow down that traffic, make them look a little more by potentially stopping them. We'd have to do a warrant analysis for it, but it's another
Is-
thing that can be looked at.
Is the analysis process for a speed table substantially different than for a stop sign?
Well, one is an actual traffic control citable, et cetera. The speed table is
Furniture?
something like that. It's not decorative. It basically what you're talking about. No, it's, no, the speed table, just to clarify what it is imagine your speed humps. But level and extended. And so the speed table in essence would be 20 or more feet long, raised up pavement about 3 inches or so. So as cars are driving, they're,
If you've driven along Bay from Ringwood towards Willow, those are speed tables. You can hit them at 30 and they work just fine. Because that's the speed limit.
Well, Hanover Street in Palo Alto has a table and it's right by where a bus stop is. So people get off the bus and then they can go into the new developments there just as you're going up the hill. And, it is a full, one side of the road to the other. And it goes up about like a speed bump, but it's about this wide.
okay, so it's a raised
Go up,
crosswalk in
And
essence.
then you
yeah.
go down, yeah, and so you do have to slow down to get over it.
I guess my question overall is trying to understand the problem we are trying to solve. I think it sounded like that the main problem is, at least you made it sound like, is people coming out of Lloyden Park or wanting to go into Lloyden Park and dealing with a kind of a semi-blind intersection here. And so if that's truly what we're trying to solve, I think, the idea of moving that, just coming around to less far along around the corner of Lloyden and
Mhm.
going to.
So
like
somewhere
the-
around here.
Yeah. If the issue is, but we're also worried about, we want to make it safer for people walking westbound on Fair Oaks. And I'd say those people have a death wish.
Right.
Then you need to do, I think your idea is to extend and put something over there, but it's just a terrible place to try. to walk.
Yeah, I think the initial input that we received when we had this in the budget was really to link I'm gonna say the Lloyden Park neighborhood with the town center and effectively giving them a real pedestrian path all the way to the library and if they want an
Which
easier
makes
route to the
sense.
park as well. So.
Yeah.
I think
But-
that seems like a logical first step to do what you're talking about there. And then if it turns out it still have people saying, well, we have people that want to walk down.
Yeah, like I said, that we can certainly look at an additional crosswalk in the future. That I don't think is a problem. I don't know if we want to open it to if there are members of we have a couple members of the BPAC, and then we have Councilmember Lewis. If you want to interject and provide some feedback before we open it to the public.
So thank you very much, Robert, for all of this analysis and the discussion so far. I guess my concern is if we put a crosswalk kind of like in the middle of halfway between where our stop sign is now going east on Fair Oaks and the railroad tracks, the pedestrians crossing at that point are just kind of out in the middle of a road. The stop sign, would it not be easier to bring the sidewalk from Lloyden Park all the way around till it gets to the where our stop sign is now in front of the town hall at that corner? But there would not be a place for them to go, right? Not there, but the other side by the stop sign, where the stop sign is. That's where our swale is. So there's not a sidewalk there, is there?
No, that's the concern about extending it further up, is that there's no pedestrian facility for them to cross to.
Got
And
it.
so
got it.
what we want to do is make
Maybe
sure
that-
that we're linking them to this sidewalk here, because
Mhm,
this
mhm.
sidewalk also has an ADA pathway crossing the driveway to the town center.
Mhm.
What
Well, that
about-
makes,
Sorry, what about moving the stop sign up to that corner where their sidewalk is?
that doesn't
We
make
have,
sense.
it'll be blocking the
Yeah.
street.
Ingress, egress of the
How much of a
road.
problem would that be, though, in practical means? I mean,
Mm,
how much traffic do you deal with?
I don't think I've seen a stop sign I'm gonna say,
an
I'm gonna
intersection.
say, I'll call it more than a driveway.
Mhm.
Because it is in essence the extension of Station Lane.
Well,
And
and it's
so-
also the main ingress egress of the
Of
police.
the town center and the
Well,
police.
The
Yeah,
police, their large driveway gate is there. And so they're constantly coming in and out of there.
I just think the distance we're talking about from that stop sign to even where, even if you put behind this truck is where you would put it. With a
Uh.
flashing beacon crosswalk, you're gonna see that if if somebody's flashing, you stop at that stop sign.
Yeah.
Forward.
And you would just wait. Yeah.
Certainly within the field of view of the drivers going east, and who have stopped at that stop sign.
Yeah.
And that gives you more of a landing on the south side of that area.
And with that sidewalk stopping where it is, where you're proposing it to stop,
And then,
what if people want to continue west on Fair Oaks all the way to El Camino? Do they just, I
Well,
mean, what do they do now? Do they just get in the road and, and walk up?
in essence, like the rest of the town, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like I said, we can look at clearing some of this vegetation
Mm-hmm.
as well.
I think that'd make me feel better so that the sidewalk is just not a sidewalk and dead ending into a, landscaped hedge where you can't go further. I think you've thought about that quite well.
that's a rough corner though.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that's
a-
where,
That's
Yeah.
fine.
my suggestion earlier was for the pedestrians to stay on what would be the south side of Fair Oaks, walking through the parking lot of
Mhm.
town center and then coming out that western entrance exit and crossing at that location where you have better sight lines as drivers, both from El Camino and then from this part of the turn.
Right,
That to me seems to be a safer place to cross.
I agree.
to continue.
I like that better, actually.
Or I'm gonna say, or they can just continue along, if they're coming out that driveway, they can continue along the,
But
But
you
we're
need
trying
both.
not to, pedestrians will be walking, facing traffic, so that makes sense. But the cyclists would, theoretically want to cross. And it opens up, where on the screen where you have it now, it opens up down here.
Are you saying only that crosswalk and not the one closer
Nope.
to the train tracks or both?
No, he's saying in addition
Yeah,
to
I
it.
agree with that.
I don't know any cyclist who's going to be come over over those train tracks, turning the parking lot right.
The cyclists are going to continue.
Oh, no. I mean, the cyclists that are coming already on Fair Oaks are
Yeah.
going to continue.
They're
that
going to
path
stay
and
on it.
Just do whatever it is their death wish has them do. But I think the pedestrian side, if you're servicing that cul-de-sac or folks that might be walking west, I mean, I wouldn't want to do something at the expense of the folks that do want to move west. And I think that painting a crosswalk at that intersection
Okay.
seems fairly simple in the overall scheme of things.
All right. You want to ask Jerry or Steve if they have any additional comments?
Anyone from BPAC have additional comments on this?
This is Jerry Lugers. We had discussed the possibility of trying to get some kind of ballast along this section of road so it's safer to walk. So not a paved sidewalk, but something that's a little friendlier than mud. I don't know.
Where do we find that?
I thought we had forwarded that to the Transportation Committee, but I don't know for sure.
And so is that a stabilized walkway all the way up to El Camino? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, from Middlefield to El Camino.
Yeah, we looked at Selby Lane.
Along Fair Oaks, there's just no right of way in most of it from Middlefield. I mean,
There-
I've walked
Yeah.
I've walked it. There's enough room to put something in. I've walked both sides of the road.
I
Um,
see bicyclists just using the road as their right of way, especially in that area. And I follow them, 3 to 5 feet behind them as they bicycle all the way up from Middlefield to where it gets to be a little bit more open. So, I mean,
Well,
they,
this is for pedestrians, because bicyclists are not going to use a ballast.
yeah, okay,
You can't do it on a 1-inch tire.
no.
Okay. Yeah. So
The discussion was for Fair Oaks and Selby was pedestrian ways. Not
Okay.
necessarily bike ways, but because it's a sharrow.
yeah, so I think at this point in time, a stabilized walkway along Fair Oaks isn't currently in the budget. This project is kind of limited to the general vicinity of the Fair Oaks, Lloyden and Station Lane intersection. But I think it's worth noting that we do have the need for pedestrian improvements along the street as well as other streets as noted by the BPAC members and the liaison, as well as in our bike and pedestrian master plan.
I think we have to take some baby steps here and it'll get there ultimately.
Any comments on location, Jerry, or other things that we need to consider?
Not for me.
Okay. Steve?
Nothing much to add. I think it's a good discussion. I like the 2 crosswalk solution that was being discussed.
Okay.
Is there a way to move the Lloyden Park stop farther out so the visibility is better, or are we just talking about clearing vegetation?
I think that we can look at bringing, kind of maybe some striping changes or other things to kind of shift that a little bit as well.
I'm just thinking, if you have it more parallel to the actual direction of the westbound lane, as opposed to coming in at an angle.
You would get hit by
Parallel-
cross traffic.
I'm
wouldn't
going
you?
to say there's cross traffic
Yeah.
coming westbound. And you have folks that will be turning left.
Yeah.
And so you can't have, I'm going to say they have to be able to see traffic in both directions. If you bring them around too far, they're not going to be able to see the oncoming traffic very easily from the east. So, but there is a possibility of kind of shifting this and maybe making it a little more perpendicular.
Yeah.
to Fair Oaks Lane, so kind of more along, let's say, like where this edge line is a possibility.
One of the thing that occurs to me, my suggestion of moving the stop sign, brought forth the idea that the police departments coming in and out of that entryway all the time. Are you need to put a no stopping striping there?
I mean, like
Right-
a keep
right at the end
clear
of
or something?
Dinkelspiel?
At the end of Dinkelspiel, we have a stop sign at the exit. So there is currently a stop sign right here. And this is
Right,
going
but
to
if
talk
you-
about,
if you have a crosswalk on the other side,
the crosswalk's going to be on this side.
right, so it's entirely possible that there would be people crossing, somebody stops the stop sign and moves up.
Right.
Creating a
Blocking the
blockage.
intersection.
I think he's thinking about like in front of a fire station where you have that no stopping area so that the fire trucks.
The keep clear zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think good idea. I think the use case is slightly different for this driveway for the police department versus fire.
Yeah, I'm going to say, thank you for bringing it up. We'll consider it. The things that I'm thinking about is that you already have, if there's a pedestrian crossing, whether it's here or here,
Or both.
well, the other one's on the other side of the
other
driveway.
side, sure.
That we'd hope that the folks stay stopped at the stop sign, waiting for the pedestrian to cross before proceeding. And the same thing with the person stopped at this stop sign. But it's something for us to,
Well, you can
to
always
look
add
into.
striping, right?
yeah, we can always add pavement markings, but I think, I said, it's something to consider. Steve?
Well, you might add a flasher. I mean, so when they chose to cross it, it would just, the flashing lights, hit a button and
Yeah,
alert traffic that you're crossing. That would solve the problem.
yeah, I think that's one of the items that we are definitely looking at is putting in the rapid flashing beacon and potentially some advanced flashing signs for oncoming traffic, particularly the westbound traffic.
All right, anyone else have any other comments before we close? You've got everything you need?
Yeah, no, thank you all very much. As we get started with the design, we'll be bringing some concepts forward to the committees for review and input.
All right, so next item is we've got an email request to put no parking signs on Lowry Street by the owner of 2 Lowry. I received an email that everyone has a copy of and has read.
Okay, I am going to share kind of an overview. Can you confirm that you see Edge Road at Lowry?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and so as the chair indicated, we received an email request from the owner of 2 Lowry. I believe that they are on the line with us.
Yes, I am.
And so if you want to articulate your concerns and you can speak directly for a couple of minutes to articulate your concerns and the reasons why you think that no parking zone is needed for Lowry Drive.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Samir Chavaskaris, and I'm the property owner of half of the lot at Lowry, which is an SB9 going through the process right now. So I became owner of June of this year. And through the process of actually cleaning up the lot, because we had a lot of high-risk trees, they were kind of tilted towards the school, tilted towards the street on edge. I was able to spend a lot of time of going on site. And what I observed, which initially I didn't, pay attention that much until like I was parked at the 2 Lowry, like right in front of the property. In the afternoon, about 2:30 p.m. or so, there were like several cars parked. They were coming as I was sitting in my car. Exactly. It was parked
Sorry,
where,
this is-
yeah, like in that stretch between the yellow sign and the end of the property, which is, the next property over in that area, exactly. And then I start paying attention of what they do. They were taking kids to school. I stayed in the car an hour and a half later. They showed up, they got back into their minivans and they left. So I was like, wait a minute. I said, we have this no parking on Edge that it's reflected, it is very clear. That is fine, but what's happening when they spill over, like on which is closer within, it's about what, 300 feet from the corner of the school to the Edge and Lowry. So I mean, of course they can just kind of walk. It's probably less than 300 feet. And I said I need to contact the town and figure out what we're gonna do. I spoke with the owner on the other side, which is the Edge and Lowry, like they are doing a remodel across the street at 35 Edge Road. If we need to go down the street, I'm willing to do so and collect signatures from all my neighbors to bring it back to the town attention that we need to evaluate this. And then I cannot even imagine, I mean, on Oak Grove, where the high school is, you have no parking signs all across for like half a mile. What is different here? It's like you are like next to the school and there's no parking anytime signs. So, I'm not a traffic person. I'm not a, my background, it's electrical engineering, but, I'm looking at this and I'm like, something it's definitely disruptive. There will be 2 homes that will be built here as soon as this SB9 is going to get approved. And, I think it needs to be evaluated. And I just wanted to get the feedback from the town and transportation committee, like if they want me to be tasked to go and talk to all my neighbors, I'm willing to spend the time and do so and come back to you with results. Thank you for your time.
Anyone, questions, comments?
No, it's more of a comment. The difference between the high school and Laurel School is kindergarten through third grade, and the high school is big kids that don't need their parents to walk them into the classroom, which is very similar to the situation we have around Encinal. And so since one of the questions that was asked by the resident was, what's the difference? Well, that is the big difference. That now I realize they have a parking lot there, and just like at Encinal, they didn't think it through the way the traffic flows, but they didn't ask for our input. But that's why if you go there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're there in the morning, the cars are parked there, and types of kids that they're bringing in there are the small kids, kindergarten, preschool, et cetera. So that's the only input I would have on that. So thank you.
The one comment I'll interject is at the high school, you have kids driving and parking. And so the no parking really is more intended to prevent the students from parking on the street.
All day while
Thank
they're
you.
in school.
At high school, you've got, I think it's 2,500 students between freshman and senior, most of which from potentially sophomore up are of age to be licensed drivers, and some of them are. So, I mean, I think you're solving a bit of a different problem there. I was over by Encinal School this afternoon at 3 o'clock, and I didn't see any no parking signs there. And I think that it's just an inherited issue with the middle schools where the parents are still actively involved to go through this carpool or park where you can to go meet with the teacher or do what you need to do. I think that's just part of that size and shape of a middle school or younger school in a community.
Encinal does have no parking. If you go into Felton Gables, the first 50 yards of the first street in there is no parking. So you see what happens is it just pushes the traffic. People park a little further into Felton Gables.
60 feet away.
Kids in. So it's, you're just kind of pushing the problem. So like the question I have.
So
Robert-
if I can make a comment, another big difference is Edge Road gets over 600 cars a day. And that's part of the reason there's no parking on Edge. Lowry doesn't get 600 cars in a week. And the big issue here is if we were to put no parking signs on Lowry Drive, where are these people going to park? Because they are going to park somewhere.
Yep.
You know, you have children in K1 and 2. Sometimes they need to be walked to school. And some kids, it might be in for an entire year. And they will, or they need to talk to the teacher, and there's inadequate parking on Laurel School itself. And then if this is a no parking area, what are all the contractors going to do when they want to park on Lowry Drive? There'll be no parking for them.
Right.
And finally, if we were to have no parking on Lowry Drive, I doubt that the police department wants to make this a priority for enforcement. So I think what we need to do is look at the bigger picture. And if this is something that we're going to do, we should look at what is available further on Ringwood, which has a very wide shoulder. Although I'm hesitant because cars go much faster on Ringwood.
Mhm.
And by the way, I live on Lowry Drive.
Well, then you may answer my next question I had. I was going to ask Robert, have we had complaints from current residents of Lowry Drive about people parking there? As far as we know?
Not as far as I know. This is a new request related to, I think, the development that's planned at the corner.
Well, let me comment. I was kind of surprised at this property. They put out no parking signs in front of their property. Well, you can't do that. I'm not sure what the easement is that the city owns. You can't just say no parking. You can't put boulders out. You can't put up signs. So, I mean, the expectation that nobody's going to park in front of your property is unrealistic, whether it's the school or later in the day or whenever, overnight for that matter. And the other thing is, Laurel School has a lot of special events where the entire street of Lowry Drive is full of cars. You know, first day of school, last day of school, Halloween, Christmas, and there are probably half a dozen others.
AYSO soccer photos.
Yes, absolutely.
Where we all went.
Art and science fair.
You know, I just don't. I think if we need to look at this, we need to find a place where they can park. So it has to be a big picture solution, because another thing, I'm sure the residents on Lowry do not want to have no parking signs all the way up and down the street.
Yeah, I just struggle with having no parking signs other than for safety, because I mean, these are public streets. We're paying taxes to have these streets. They have uses, and one of the uses is parking.
Right.
And for someone to be able to say, well, I don't want anybody parking in front of my house, it's just not,
Too bad.
I don't either,
I don't either.
but
but it's, you
I
have to.
mean, I've been surrounded by construction for about 15 years now.
Yeah. Me three.
Yeah, so it's just, you know, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's a part of it. So, you know, welcome to the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
I would
Well-
echo that sentiment. Having formerly lived in Elder over by Hillview for many years, this is exactly the problem we had. And you know what? The good news is we could walk to Hillview. Our kids were fortunate. And the bad news was there's a lot of parking on our street, but
Mhm.
you know, we knew that when we bought the house.
Right.
Any additional comments?
Not on my side. It's just a matter of whether or not this is something that the committee wants further interaction with regards to, or whether or not it's just basically not recommended at this point.
Based on the sentiment I'm hearing from both committees, I'm not hearing a lot of support for this. So I don't know, someone wants to propose.
I can't imagine being a resident on Lowry and wanting, no parking anytime signs. I mean, how would you have a party?
Even in Encinal, where you do have the no parking issues in there, it is at certain times of day, and it's basically pick up and drop off. I'm trying to push it back a little bit, but because same thing, they don't want to have their guests not be able to park in front of them.
And if I may add one other thing, if they ban parking on Lowry, it's gonna put it on Edge, which gets 50 times as many cars. They're just gonna park on Edge all the way to Oak Grove.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next item, moving to a letter. We received an email for asking for improvements on Encinal Avenue over safety concerns here. A parent there has written a letter, and I believe, is she on the call?
She is. Christy, you want to introduce yourself and
Sure,
introduce your
great.
item and concerns?
Yes. And so have you seen my email, or should I kind of give the whole overview?
We've seen it.
We have seen it.
Okay, so I'm Christy Peets. I'm a parent of 2 kids that have gone to Encinal, one who's currently at Encinal. And when they were younger, I wanted to bike with them to school every day, but I really felt like it was not safe. So there was no safe route to school. Now I am the safe routes coordinator, and my children are a little bit older. And so I am biking my younger son to school every day. And I'm just seeing a lot of children falling off bikes and near misses and things that really scare me to the core. And I think, there are 600 plus kids going to Encinal every day. And if we can even do small improvements to Encinal Street to make it safer, I think that it could actually save a life. So while it would be so ideal to add, for example, a sidewalk to one side of Encinal, which is something that Menlo Park actually had on their transportation master plan. And so Menlo Park had intended to put a sidewalk on the northern side of Encinal Street before kind of doing a deeper dive and finding out that the entirety of Encinal Street is actually in Atherton's jurisdiction. So now that's come off of their master plan, is my understanding. And similarly, in Menlo Park's master plan, they were going to do bulb outs on the intersection of Laurel and Encinal, which is a really difficult intersection for kids to navigate for a number of reasons. So that has also come off of Menlo Park's master plan, is my understanding, because they've found out that they don't actually have jurisdiction over those projects. So that's why I'm here talking to you. Ideally, I think that there needs to be infrastructure changes to bring down the speed to make a crash survivable. And there is going to be a kid who swerves into Encinal Street. There are already children who swerve into Encinal Street, and it's like by luck that none of them have been hit. So if cars are going slower, I think that will just make an accident something that is a broken arm and not a fatality. So I understand from Robert that speed bumps have already been approved as a, I don't know if it's like a temporary measure for Encinal Street, but they just haven't been scheduled. So if we could bump that up and make it a priority project, I think that would go a long way. And I have other signage requests. I even sent an email at the beginning of tonight's meeting with just showing like how if there were neon signs at the crosswalk, I think that would just greatly improve the visibility of the crosswalk. Right now, you barely see it, and then the crossing guard jumps out and kind of saves kids. It's like a situation where every day you see something a little bit harrowing, and you think, oh, thank God, like that child didn't get hit. And it's just a matter of time, which is really a sad thought. And I don't know if you all are aware of that. And I wanted to bring it up And I proposed in my email several, what I think are really small improvements, like very affordable and easy to do. And I would love the opportunity to like walk down Encinal Street at either drop off or pickup time with Robert or another one of you. I don't know what the best way to interact with your committee is to show you kind of what the problems are and propose and troubleshoot potential solutions, but I want to be a partner in that project. So that's it. I see Catherine is also on the line and she's another parent and lives on Encinal Street. So
Yeah.
don't know if you have something to add
So,
or if you guys want to ask questions.
so in terms of responding, just a couple things. First, we are very aware of these issues, and I personally am. I live on Glenwood, and I have a 12-year-old who finished up at Encinal 2 years ago. And we biked every day to school. So we biked up Glenwood to Laurel and then down there. And so very familiar with all those issues and try to resolve some of them. And I know one change that's happened over the last, there is a crossing guard now at the corner of Encinal and
Two.
there's a crossing guard down at the inter.
There's three.
That's true.
There's three on Encinal now.
But the newer one was there wasn't, when we were biking for 5 years, there was no one at the corner of Laurel and Encinal, and now that's been added, which is helpful. And I actually still drive that intersection every day because my daughter's a Sacred Heart. So I go down Laurel and go left now on Encinal and go up and go Alejandro to get to the back of Sacred Heart. So I see it all the time, what's happening. So definitely, I just want to say we are very familiar with this. This is an issue we've talked a lot about of what we can do, and it is somewhat complicated by there is some mixed jurisdiction things, but
I wanted clarification about that. Was one part of Encinal Menlo Park and the other part of Encinal Atherton?
Yeah, that's my understanding
That's what
because
I thought.
it's Menlo Park until you get to Encinal School. It's Atherton from Laurel up on the south side. But it's Menlo. We've been through this before with Menlo Park. You know, this is the first time I've seen that they actually had a person who had his name down that said, oh, that's not ours, but they own half that street. And so what's happened is that there was a school group that asked them to put sidewalks on their side. And they didn't want to do it. They said they didn't have the budget. Also, at that corner of Laurel and Encinal, the people coming from ECR often cut they made a big space, but people cut it off all the time. People cut the corner. And, I've spoken with the Menlo Park Police Department as well as the Menlo Park group. The only thing they did at one time is they put a little cone out there and the cone didn't do anything, but Menlo Park PD comes to actually watch it sometimes, but they come at 10 o'clock in the morning. But they own half that street. So Hugh was incorrect with his information because from Felton Gables, the beginning of that Felton Gable property, all the way down, that's Menlo Park, not Atherton.
I can double check, but the last time I looked at it, I think that we had the right of way along Encinal up until Laurel. The properties on the Felton Gable side are in Menlo Park. The properties on the other side are in ours.
Right.
But I think that the full width may be ours. I can confirm that.
But the sidewalks would not be in the middle of the road. They would be on the Encinal side of the school.
No, I think that the right of way may be ours on both sides.
So may I say something?
Yes.
I really am in total support of these children trying to get to school. And I know that is a terribly congested ingress and egress to school. When Encinal was built, we didn't have any input on how much parking, or ingress, egress that they were making for the school. And they severely parked their staff and their turnoffs, their drop-offs and everything. And it's terrible. So I think we really, as a town, have a responsibility to work with the city of Menlo Park, whoever is owning whichever right of way or not, but to get something done. It's been going on for years. I mean, I've walked that with parents who were complaining about it 5 years ago. So it's just not gotten better. And I really admire you, parents, coming to us with this. And so whatever Atherton can do to put some money behind making that section safer for the children to bike, I'm in total support of it. And I think we really need to bring it to council, Vice Mayor, and talk about it.
Okay, I'm going to interject with a couple of items that.
If I could just add
Sure.
one additional question. There is a flashing speed on Encinal, whether or not it's operational anymore, but there was one installed there years ago.
I don't think it's,
Okay, if it was, it may have been one of the ones that were installed and then relocated to another location. I don't think we have a
Yeah, we
permanent
should
one in
check.
place.
Okay, I think.
We'll double check that. I wanted to interject and mention a couple of things before continuing conversation between the committee members and then opening it to the public. In the Neighborhood Traffic Management Action Plan, there were a few items that were recommended and approved by the council for implementation, one of which is completed already, and that's the restriping of the crosswalk and the installation of the shark tooth limit lines.
mhm.
The second is in the short-term phase 2 improvements are the planned implementation of speed humps on Encinal to slow down traffic as well. We typically have a budget for installing some speed feedback signs, but I think the next several in terms of locations have already been identified. There is a potential of looking at additional speed feedback signs. We have had some communication with a resident with regards to some of the signage and some of the concerns with regards to additional signage on the street. That resident is here tonight and will likely want to provide input during public comment.
Do you have a rough idea of the timing for the speed hump on Encinal?
We have 3 humps or 3 sets of humps that we need to implement as part of the phase 1 implementation up at Linda Vista, Fairview, and Monte Vista. Following that, we have a few other minor items to complete in the phase 1 improvements before we roll into phase 2. And we can put Encinal and speed humps there at the top of the list in terms of that implementation. And part of that is going to be finding residents that are amenable to having the humps in front of their home. Yeah. Yeah, and those 2 items were part of that. There is the potential of relocating some of the advanced signage and putting directed signage at the crosswalk, but we want to talk to the fronting property owner about that.
Any other comments from any committee members? Open it up.
In BPAC, we have talked about Encinal quite a bit and heartily endorse improvements for pedestrians and cyclists, whatever we can do. Our top priority in the town is safe schools.
That's the school.
Selby, Encinal, Laurel.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well,
I know.
yeah.
I know.
Complicated. Yeah, so whatever we can do on Encinal, even if it's just paint at this point, is going to be an improvement.
Yeah, I would love to see, I mean, the calming measures, but I would love to see a sidewalk on at least one side of that street for those students, because it's a large amount of student traffic walking up and down that street every day.
Yeah, the traffic, the master plan only lists Encinal being walkable up to Felton Gables. That's it from Middlefield. And the rest of it is considered unwalkable. And people walk it every day.
Well, they walk in the bike lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, they walk in the bike lane. 'Cause
Oh, I know.
there's now a crossing guard that's partway down. So there's 3 crossing guards up there now.
And just for context of biking with the child. So when we're biking, and there are pedestrians that are walking in the bike lane, sometimes you see kids just go around the pedestrians and they are swerving into traffic. So that's in itself causing part of the problem, is that there are pedestrians.
Yeah.
And also for a little more context, I counted the bikes just to see like how many kids are biking to school. And there were between 75 and 100. So think of all of the cars that's taking off of the road. And then that's not counting the kids who are walking. So there's just a great deal of pedestrian and bike traffic when we also consider how many apartments are going in on El Camino across from Safeway. And I think all of those children are going to Encinal. If we can get them a safe route to Encinal, we can keep them, on bikes and walking rather than generating even more traffic.
Yeah, I agree.
Any more committee?
I just want to make, I just want to make a comment about the apartments. Yes, the ones closer to Laurel, Valparaiso, probably, but the ones closer to Palo Alto, probably not, because those are like Stanford faculty people. And they're just 1 bedroom, not 2 bedroom, not like families.
But the Greenheart facility.
The Greenheart facility, yes, absolutely. You're
And then
right.
between Glenwood and Oakwood, there's, between Glenwood and Encinal, there's another development in the back of where Beltramos used to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just more and more housing all the time.
Yeah.
Nancy, I'm sorry, but I recall when we were going through getting approvals for the Arriaga project, which is across from Safeway, that there was an issue there because they were tax exempt. They weren't paying anything toward the school. And so the school district went to Stanford and had a long negotiation with them to fund part of it, because it was an estimate of how many students would come out of there. So it wasn't just faculty, there were apartments there with, I can't remember the number. They'd estimated a number of students, and Stanford paid 1 lump sum, which was ridiculous, like $1 million or something.
5 million.
$5 million, right? So there are definitely students coming out of that complex.
But those are going to be college students.
No, those are
Faculty
it's
students.
just
faculty-
owned by Stanford, and there are going to be a certain number of children that will be there.
And 1 bedroom apartments.
I don't believe that's.
Huh.
I have to look at it more carefully, but I thought there were some.
Oh,
There's 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom apartments.
Okay.
That's
makes
all,
sense.
not 3. Yeah.
Okay,
All right, if there's no other comments from committee members, open it to public comment. And I think we have a resident who wants to speak.
if you can go to
You
the
can step up
microphone.
and use the microphone up there. Or either way.
Let me just go turn it on.
I'm John Anderson. I live at 170 Encinal Avenue. My wife and I have lived there for over 35 years. There has never been a flashing light between Laurel and Middlefield on Encinal during the period of our residence there. I have a couple things I would like to request that at least those of us on the Atherton side, at least myself, I'd love to be informed of when you're having any discussions about what's to be done on Encinal, including speed tables or speed bumps. I would agree with the idea that the sidewalk on the north side makes the most sense. It would be lovely to have that in. I'm well aware of the problems on Encinal. By the way, when you went there thinking people were voting at Encinal this afternoon or this morning, there is no more voting at Encinal School. It's now being done at Menlo College. What you saw was what happens every afternoon on Encinal Street with the coming and going. It's gotten better when they redirected the traffic, by the way, preventing left turns exiting out of Laurel School. That made a big difference. So I would just like to be informed in further discussions on these things. I know the signage was put up. We now have a very unattractive sign right outside our driveway, which limits our observation of comings and goings on Encinal. I've requested that that sign be moved, and I appreciate your help on that matter. I think we need to keep in mind that this is a residential district as well as the school. We're well aware of the school, but I'd like to put in a plea that let's keep the residential aspect, the nice residential aspect in mind. I think all the no parking signs on Encinal should be removed. They're not observed. There's one on each side of our driveway. And it doesn't bother me. I don't think, in fact, people disregard them and they park. A lot of construction people park their cars. I don't find that bad. They don't obstruct and they should never obstruct the bike lane. I think that's a state law. But if there's wide enough area for someone to park in the right of way there, I don't have a problem with that. I'd take every no parking sign down. They're old, they're faded, and they're ugly. They're very unattractive. I think we need to be aware of signage on our streets. That makes sense. There's some intersections in Menlo Park. You couldn't possibly read all the signs if you're driving 20 miles an hour. You couldn't. So why have them? Some of them are totally unnecessary. Encinal is 25 miles an hour, posted as 25 miles an hour. You shouldn't have a sign that said speed 25 miles an hour when children are present. Makes no sense. So I would ask for some reconsideration of signage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I also make a community comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Beecher. I live at 190 Encinal, so I live directly across the street from the school. I, like Christy, I have children that one goes there now and one has gone there and is now at Hillview. And I appreciate everything that the committee has said and everything that Christy has said and everything that the gentleman just said as well. I think there are a lot of good opportunities for improving the street. One thing that I would like to particularly draw attention to on the topic of signs, but potentially on the topic of other things, is that only during school drop-off and pickup times when traffic gets backed up, people will frequently become impatient and drive either in the oncoming traffic lane or in the bike lane to get around the stop traffic. So I agree with the gentleman when he said that when cars are not allowed to turn left into Encinal, it alleviates that problem. However, that's not posted. That's not actually a regulation. That's just a suggestion that the school has attempted to make in our community, which is clearly not followed. So I would love to see that is actually a posted no left turn, or maybe even more reasonably posted no left turn during, the following hours. You see signs like that. I think that the nice thing about Encinal Avenue is that it's not really a heavily trafficked street outside of those narrow bands of time when it's very, very, very important that everything is very safe and buttoned up. So I think we have the opportunity potentially to put in some signage or to put in some kinds of, I'm not exactly certain what, I'm open to lots of ideas, and I have lots of ideas as well, that would indicate to drivers, essentially, if you choose to drive down this street during drop off and pickup time, too bad for you. You might want to choose a different way. Because otherwise I think it's not really a horribly trafficked street. But I absolutely second very heavily the idea of sidewalks, particularly because there isn't a place for pedestrians to walk right now. So pedestrians and bikers always are fighting over that space on both sides of the street, both the Encinal side and the Menlo Park resident side. And I see that with my own son, that he's had to swerve around around pedestrians. And it's really unfortunate. It makes it unwelcoming. People want to go to the playground. People want to go, like my own children like to go from my house, 190 Encinal, through to Holbrook Palmer. And, you know, to be able to have safe sidewalk access would be such a huge improvement to our street and to its welcoming nature.
Can I ask you a question? One thing you said is the school is trying to implement a policy that you can't turn left into Encinal if you're going eastbound on Encinal Avenue?
Correct. They have actually implemented I mean, to the extent that they're able to, they can't enforce it. So let's be honest, but they have done a parent education campaign for no left turning into the driveway, as you said, for the eastbound traffic. And then also out of the driveway, you're supposed to, strongly suggested to turn right onto Encinal instead of coming around onto left, because people exiting the driveway, turning left, are also holding up the whole line through the traffic. Yeah.
Catherine, if possible, do you think you can have somebody from the school send over a request with regards to that no left turn?
I could certainly ask. Yeah.
As far as we know, that is not anything that's been officially done or.
Like I say, in previous conversations, the school had been opposed to restricting left turns into that driveway.
Okay. Yeah, I'll reach out to the principal and I will find out what's possible. But that has, I mean, Christy can back me up, but that's been posted on the sign. You know, there's the marquee, posted on the marquee, no left turn. It's been put in the newsletters. It's been indicated. In fact, the exit from the driveway now has a series of cones with a little dinky no left turn sign resting up against one to actually physically block cars from turning left during those busy periods of time.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
John Anderson again. I think it's the right turn. They're only allowing right turns or suggesting that as you exit Encinal, and that's helped a great deal. I agree. They should do like a racetrack thing, that people go down, always come off Middlefield to enter the school and exit out of Encinal, come up Middlefield and exit going west up Encinal, come in from the east side and exit from the west.
My concern is there's the law of unintended consequences. Taking that much traffic and directing it onto Middlefield is going to cause a series of other problems as well. Yeah.
I think that is true, but right now what we have is we have cars driving in the oncoming traffic lane, which is never a safe situation. I mean, there's never any situation in which it's safe to drive in the oncoming traffic lane. And I sent a video. I wasn't able to capture the entire incident, but I witnessed 3 cars going into oncoming traffic, and then a car turned left but was unable to complete the left turn into the driveway, and a SUV came and screeching halt, honk, 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 nearly hit them because the SUV was also going too fast and was not going to Encinal, was just trying to go through Encinal. So it was not going through to the school, I should say. So, I mean, I understand that traffic has to go somewhere, but hopefully it's not going to go into oncoming traffic lanes.
Oh, I was gonna say that I would think most of the traffic would be pushed to Watkins.
So that is a very common situation. And on Emily, in front of Sacred Heart exit just this afternoon, that exact same thing happened because there was oncoming cars trying to turn into left into the parking lot. There were the other cars trying to turn, they couldn't get in. And so people were going around and coming. I just followed them. I just went around and went into the oncoming lane and then scooted away. It's a mess.
Mhm.
School traffic is a mess and
Yes,
parents
yeah.
are very, very impatient. And there's no, they need more traffic guards and, control people to somehow control
Yeah, I
the
agree.
traffic.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments?
It's so funny.
No, other comments? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, the one question I have is, as staff engages both from Public Works and potentially PD with the parent groups and residents, you want this directed to, is it better to deal with a BPAC first or with, direct with the Transportation Committee? I think most of these are related to bicycle and pedestrian traffic, so
Yeah.
we'll probably be engaging with the BPAC first and then coming to
Yeah, I
Transportation
mean,
Committee.
the only reason I would transportation be involved is when you have a situation, if the school says, well, to solve this problem, we're going to stop left turns here and force a complete traffic reflow around the school. That's probably when we have to.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you everyone for that. Next time we're moving to the monthly traffic police reports.
I think we have Sergeant Metzger on the line.
Yes, you do. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'll start by saying that if you looked at the monthly statistics for the last 4 months since we last met, you'll notice that the information is a little bit different than it has been historically. That's because we recently started switching over to a turbo data electronic citation issuing system. And we've been working out some of the kinks with the manufacturer or supplier of these ticket machines so that we can disseminate information and citations written more closely to how we've done it in the past. We've got just one more bug to work out that we're working with the manufacturer, and the information should be the same as it has been in the past. So if there's any questions concerning those reports, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Seem to be fairly consistent month to
Yeah.
month for me reviewing all of them in terms of number of accidents and DUIs and things like that.
In
I don't have any
uniform.
Questions, yeah. Anyone else? No, okay. Robert, any future agenda items anyone wants to add to them?
Actually, I did have one question going back into the traffic collision data. There's a database for that, correct?
Yes.
Because one of the things I've been doing is compiling bicycle and traffic, trying to get all of our information on one visual. And the information I had, I think, only went up to 2016 or 2018. So if there's more current data, I would love to get a hold of it.
Why don't we engage offline and I can
Sure.
direct you to a couple avenues to get the information you want.
Right. Any future agenda items you want to add at this point? Suggestions, anything? Think so? Any additional public comments on any other topics? We've already done that really. All right. So with that, our next meeting date is January 10th, New Year's. All right.
God, 2023.
So
All right. Well, thank you.
adjourn the meeting.
How old are we now?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everyone.
Back
Thank
at
you,
ya.
Elizabeth.
To y'all.
Not Christmas yet. God,
Oh, yeah, happy Thanksgiving too.
thanks.
Oh, that.